Recording now. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being part of this latest ONC Lunch and Learn. My name is Vanessa Baca. I am the manager of the City of Albuquerque Office of Neighborhood Coordination. I want to welcome our attendees in the audience. I'm glad you could take the time to be here. And I want to also have our panelists introduce themselves. The topic we are going to discuss today is the upcoming I-25 Comanche Improvement Project. And I will start with Mike. Mike, if you want to introduce yourself, your name and your title, and your involvement with your specific involvement with the project.
Thank you, Vanessa. Yeah, my name is Mike Worrell. I'm an engineer with Horrocks Engineers, and I am project manager for leading a consultant team that's working with the Department of Transportation to get this project ready for design build. And I can explain a little bit more about what that means when we get into it. But
great. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Bo?
Bo Hunter. I'm also from Horrocks Engineers. I work with Mike. My role on the project is public information. My job is to work with Vanessa and others to get information out about the project. And like Mike, I will be sharing some of what we've done to date to communicate with the general public. And hopefully we can answer your questions while we're here today as well.
Thanks, Bo. Macy?
Hi, I'm Macy Mortimer. I'm with Horrocks Engineers as well, and I work closely with Bo on his team. And Bo and I will be answering your questions today.
Great. Joseph?
Hi, thanks, Vanessa. Good afternoon. I'm Joseph Casadas. I'm with the Department of Transportation. I'm the project development engineer for Central Region Design, Albuquerque area, and then extending out a little bit beyond that. And I'm working with Horrocks Engineers to get this project off the ground.
Great. Thanks for taking the time and being part of it. Appreciate it. Last but not least, we have our neighborhood association representative, Pat.
Yes, that's me. I am the president of the Hodgins Neighborhood Association, and we are right by Carlisle and Montgomery and Comanche. So we are here to find out what's going on. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, your neighborhood is definitely going to be directly impacted. So I'm really glad you could take the time to be here, Pat. I appreciate it. I did have one more neighborhood panelist. I don't see him logged on, but if he does log on, we will let him be part of the discussion as well. I just want to make sure he's not in the audience. And then if he is, I can let him in. All right. So for our audience members, before we start, for those of you who have attended these before, I'm going to structure this one a little bit differently. I'm going to have the NMDOT and the contractor project staff do a brief presentation overview of the project itself, including when it's going to start. They're going to just talk about what's going to be involved in the project. Then we will jump into questions from our neighborhood association representation, Pat. After that, I will ask the questions that have been emailed to me by our attendees. And you as attendees as well have the opportunity to type questions into the chat, and we will get to those at the very end. We have an hour and a half scheduled, so hopefully that is enough time. If for whatever reason we do not get to attendees' questions in the chat, I will email them to the project team and I will get those back to you as soon as I possibly can. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike, Bo, and Macy if you guys want to get started with an overview of the project.
Perfect. We want to welcome everybody. Thanks for coming today. Hopefully this is insightful and hopefully we can answer your questions. Mike's going to give us an overview of the project right now, and then I'll talk a little bit about public engagement and aesthetics and ways to get a hold of us if you have questions after today. So Mike, you want to go ahead and tell us what you know about I-25?
sure. So the project is, you probably can guess, is a project to along I-25, roughly extending from the overpass at Candelaria all the way to almost the off ramps at the Jefferson Street interchange, but it'll include reconstruction of pavement for the mainline I-25 freeway, the frontage roads, and associated ramps. And then it'll also involve reconstruction of the two interchanges the one at Comanche Road, and the other at Montgomery Boulevard. So really the purpose for the project is a number of reasons, but it's really to improve the efficiency and operation along the freeway main line, the associated ramps on and off the freeway, and those frontage roads that are adjacent and parallel the freeway, and then the interchanges. And really all of it's in response to growth and in travel demand and traffic in the area, and to prepare for growth over the next 20 years or so. It's been a process getting to this point. And this schedule or this timeline kind of demonstrates that. But this process, believe it or not, started over 10 years ago with planning studies that the department did for the I-25 corridor from the interchange at I-40 or the Big I all the way up to Tramway Boulevard. And they have been implementing different pieces of that plan as funding is available. And so this particular project and this length of the corridor it's next in line for that. And so we're at the point where we're getting this project ready for design and construction. Bo, talk about
one
outreach.
Outreach that we've done so far. We held a public meeting in the fall, and it was really 2 meetings. We offered an online Zoom meeting where people could join and learn about the project. A lot of the information we're sharing today is very similar to what we talked about back in August. We also offered an in-person option. With COVID, we were trying to be careful and sensitive and smart about the way we approached it. And so we had we had the online meeting, and then we had some in-person availability. And we also took comments from the public at that time as part of our environmental process. Since that time, we've had over 60 individual meetings with adjacent property owners and businesses. And that's not 60 individual meetings or individual owners or businesses. There's probably between 30 and 40 that we've met with, and some of them we've met with multiple times. And so we've been trying to get out and talk to anybody that's adjacent to the corridor that would likely be impacted directly as part of our project. We're also meeting monthly with the city of Albuquerque. We have a core group of staff, and we have Melissa Leoza is assigned as the key contact. And then we're meeting with lots of different departments and individuals to coordinate to make sure that the city knows what our plans are and that the project is coordinated. We've updated the city council twice, and we'll continue to do that throughout the project so that they stay in the loop. And then we've also met with GATSI, the Greater Albuquerque Active Transportation Committee, twice. And Mike's going to talk a little bit more about our design and can share with you how their feedback has shaped some of what we're trying to do for bikes and pedestrians that are interacting with our interchanges along the corridor. So Mike, I'll turn it over to you to talk a little bit about the details of the project.
Bo, can I ask a question really quick?
Yeah.
So the lead city department for this project, your direct interface is going to be the Department of Municipal Development, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. Okay, and that's Melissa Lozoya, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Great. I just wanted to clarify for our audience attendees if they didn't know who Melissa was. So.
Yeah, she's been great. We've been meeting regularly. We're communicating even outside those meetings, and
right.
It's really good to customize our meetings to get the right people there to make sure everybody's on the same page between the city and the Department of Transportation.
Great, thank you.
So these next few slides give a little bit more detail about what the project's going to include. At Comanche Road, the mainline freeway and the bridges of I-25 over top of Comanche Road will be rebuilt and replaced with new bridges that will be not only wider to include some additional auxiliary lane along the mainline freeway, but also longer in order to span additional turn lane and bicycle pedestrian facility and that crossing underneath along Comanche Road. The on and off ramps are going to be reconfigured and improved. And then facilities for both pedestrians and bicyclists are going to be enhanced and improved through the interchange area. Even more specifically, that in the busiest part of the interchange, underneath the bridges between the intersections, those facilities are going to be a combined bike ped path for either direction, east or west, along Comanche Road that's barrier separated from the traffic. So there'll be a barrier between the motorized traffic and the non-motorized traffic. And that was basically a request from that bicycling and non-motorized community. And then again, as you might expect with the changes in there, that access and driveways will be adjusted and hopefully simplified a little bit. One of the things that's included at this interchange and both interchanges really is what we refer to as advanced U-turns. Most people know them as Texas turnarounds. Texas has them in a lot of locations, but those are an additional lane underneath the interchange that if you're traveling one direction on a frontage road, you can loop around and go the opposite direction without having to turn through the signalized intersections. So it's its own dedicated lane that you can loop around. And that's for both sides and both directions of travel. So we can go to the next slide. And then along I-25, I mentioned that on and off ramps will be reconfigured, lengthened to provide improved acceleration and deceleration length and better weaving configurations of being able to get on and have better space to get on and off and negotiate your way through traffic as you're getting on or off the freeway. Next slide. As I mentioned, the frontage roads will be reconstructed and improved. There is a feature here that's shown in the middle, and one of the things that one of the main features of the project is because of the proximity between Comanche Road and Montgomery Road, the interchanges are close enough that it makes it difficult for cars or vehicles getting on and off the freeway to weave across one another as one's getting on from one interchange to cross over the other getting off at the next. So just because of those two interchanges are close enough, one of the things that's included in the project is what we call braided ramps. And so those movements would be grade separated with a bridge going over for one movement going over top of the other. So if you're getting off northbound to get off at Montgomery Boulevard, you would cross over top of those people getting on northbound, getting on the freeway from Comanche going northbound. And then the corollary going the other direction on the opposite side is true. If you want an example of this, the example I like to refer to is north of here. There's an example of this getting off northbound I-25. If you're going to access directly Ellison, there's an off ramp to get off at Ellison. You cross over the top of an on ramp northbound from San Mateo. That's a braided ramp. So that's the same sort of feature here. Next slide. And then at Montgomery, to accommodate all of those additional turn lanes, additional bicycle and pedestrian paths, and to accommodate, again, here, those advanced U-turns or Texas turnarounds, the bridge of Montgomery over top of I-25 is going to be quite a lot bigger, at essentially twice as wide as it is today. But all of the similar features, the difference between Montgomery Road and Comanche is that Montgomery goes over the top of I-25. One thing that's really important to mention with this is if you think about it going southbound at I-25, there is only 3 through lanes, or what we call general purpose lanes, that cross underneath that overpass. That's kind of a bottleneck for people traveling southbound, particularly in the rush hour in the mornings, and that can cause some backups. That will no longer be the case. So there will be 4 lanes. There won't be the loop ramp anymore. If you're going east or westbound and you loop around to go southbound on I-25, that is being replaced with a double left turn lane, so that to provide for 2 lanes of traffic turning left to go south there. But that allows that 4th lane to be added. I mentioned the bicycle pedestrian trails. Today there isn't much in the way of facility to walk across that bridge. There'll be full combined bicycle and pedestrian trails going across in each direction. And then we're going to provide a direct connection from those pathways to the trail that runs along the North Diversion Channel today. So there'll be direct connections there at that location. So, all right, next slide. I think that basically those are the main improvements. The project will include aesthetic elements. There's an aesthetic plan that's is included. That theme was developed by a local artist, and that came out of a process. The acronym is CAFE, but it stands for a call for entries. Basically, there was a call for people to submit concepts, artistic concepts from the community, and a local artist won that. His idea won that panel. Basically chose his concept, and it's the whole theme is based on diamonds and this blue color. And so those aesthetic elements will be built into the hard features of the project. They'll be included on the retaining walls and bridge features. So you'll see that kind of inlaid with the color and the shapes inlaid with that. At this time, their landscaping is not part of the project. But if the city of Albuquerque is able to find some funding for that, we can add that. Otherwise, it'll probably come at some later point after the main part of the construction is completed. So, next slide. Our schedule. One of the things that's important, I really briefly mentioned the word or the phrase design build. So this project's being implemented a little bit differently than most traditional projects that the department does. Most department projects are where they will do a design or have a design done, and then it goes out for advertisement and contractors bid on that, and then a contractor builds it. This is a design, what we call a design build process, and the department will ultimately contract with a design build team to both design and build it. So our particular role right now is to help the department get the project ready for that and prepare procurement documents and contract documents to get that done. We're in the process of doing all that now. We will release what's we refer to as a design build request for proposal in later in the early fall of this year. And then proposing teams will prepare proposals to do that over about a 4-month period. And then at the end of the year, the department will receive those in early part of or during the winter of 2022, 2023, the department will evaluate and make a selection of the successful team and successful proposal. And we would then expect to see a contract in place with a notice to proceed to that team. And I would expect that we could expect to see construction start as early as next spring of 2023 or early summer on portions of that. So, Bo, you want to wrap us up here?
Yeah, Mike talked about our schedule and construction. One of the things that we would like to do as we kind of wrap up this phase and get a contractor on board is host a Meet the Contractor open house. Some type of meeting where you guys can see the final design, the concepts they've come up with. We'd have more information at that time about traffic impacts and maintenance of traffic. We'd have a better schedule as well. And so if you're interested in something like that, Macy is going to post our website in the chat. You can visit our website to sign up for updates, and we will make sure you're aware of that meeting when we have it, as well as other updates throughout construction will be going out through email as well. If you have questions after this meeting about the project or want to interact with the project team, you can reach us on our hotline. It's 505-785-ROAD or 505-785-7623, or you can email us at info@i25improve.com. We'd love to hear from you. We're eager to talk to you. Like Mike said, we don't have all the answers today. We're still working through that. We'll get a design build contractor on board later this year, early next year, and then we'll lead into construction. But we'd love to answer your questions and talk more about the project today. It looks like there are some questions potentially coming in. If you have questions, you can submit them via the chat. And I know I'll turn the time back to Vanessa. I know you have some questions that have already come in advance, so we'd like to answer today if we can.
Yeah, thank you. And I went ahead and typed in the website, the email address, and the hotline number into the chat for our panelists. I wanted to ask, and this may not have been decided yet since you're still in the, you've not just started the design process build yet, but do you have a specific estimated date of when the construction will start? I know you mentioned the spring of 2023, but can you narrow that down or not? And not at this point.
I really can't. And much of the, given the process, so one of the reasons the department is using design build is to leverage the competitive nature of that process to get the best proposal. And and so we can, but we don't really know what the successful team will bring to the table as far as schedule. But I would, in design build, that the design build teams can overlap design functions and construction functions. And so they can get early stuff going while they're still completing design for the rest of the project. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, some construction work start to occur somewhere along the project. Like I said, late spring, early summer of next year. Okay.
And is there an estimated, I know again, since the project has not started yet, but is there an estimated length of time that the construction itself will be anticipated to last? Just so people can kind of prepare themselves for how long the traffic issues might last, that kind of stuff. Because I know traffic is going to be a big concern.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the construction industry is affected by the pandemic, just like everything else.
Yep.
And so resources are kind of an evolving thing, but and this is going to sound like not a very specific answer. The parts of the project are a little bit complicated to construct, particularly when we're trying to maintain traffic and maintain access to everything as we're doing it. And so how that all happens will kind of play out in the overall schedule. But we estimate it's anywhere from a 2 to 3 year project, 3 years at the outside, but there probably could be some stuff to improve upon that. And so we're hoping that proposing teams might be able to find ways to do that better. But it's anywhere from a 2 to 3 year project. So.
Mike, add to that, that's one of the reasons we're using design build. We want those innovations. We want contractors to team with a designer and come to us and say, hey, we could maybe shorten the schedule here if we tried this approach. And so we'll know more as we get into that selection process, because we're hoping to get some innovations that will help us in that regard as well.
Yeah, okay. And this is probably more of a question for Macy, or Bo, you could probably answer it too. If people sign up for the project updates through your website, will they get notified like when the date of construction is starting and things like that?
Yeah, as we know more, we'll share more.
Okay, great.
If they sign up,
I'll share that as well with our neighborhood associations as well. I just, that was just something that somebody had an email, a question someone had sent me, so I wanted to ask it kind of at the beginning.
Yeah, we'll also have that open house to meet the contractor, and we'll have all those details there as well.
Okay, terrific. That's great. So Pat, I'm gonna let you ask the questions that you have from your neighborhood folks. Then I will get into the questions that were submitted to me via email, and then at the end, I will ask the questions that have been typed into the chat. And so Pat, if you want to go ahead and start your questions.
All right, thank you. Well, I think that most of the questions, a good portion of the questions that I've had sent to me has been answered. It's in the future. I mean, you don't even know the answers yet. And so I won't go into that. A big concern was about the bridge on Montgomery. Where are the people going to go when that bridge, I mean, the bridge is going to be taken down completely. So will they be, if they want to go across to Costco or whatever, where will they go? Will will this be finished down by Comanche? Can they go that way?
How are you talking about traffic? Or are you talking about
traffic?
Okay.
Traffic on Montgomery going over the I-25.
Okay.
That's a really good question. And so everything's relative here. So, but believe it or not, replacing and nothing's really particularly simple, but replacing the Montgomery bridge over top of I-25 is much more straightforward and simpler to do than replacing the bridges at Comanche Road. And the reason is because the new bridges, or the new bridge is going to be, we're about twice as wide as the one is today. And most of that additional width we're expecting to be to the south of the one that's there today. So that bridge could be replaced in phases while maintaining Montgomery Road over the top. So we would expect a contractor to be able to construct the south half of the new bridge without affecting the existing bridge, right? And then they would be able to divert traffic to the new bridge while they're tearing down the old one and replacing it with the north half of the new bridge. The more difficult bridges to replace are the ones of I-25 over Comanche Road, because as I mentioned, those bridges are not only wider, but they're longer, and replacing those while maintaining all 4 lanes of traffic in each direction, I-25, is going to be a sequencing challenge in order to be able to do that while maintaining traffic on top during all of those stages. So while it's not simple, I think the Montgomery is going to, and there's going to be some inconveniences, but we think that for the most part, traffic will be able to be maintained across Montgomery Boulevard over top of I-25 throughout the project.
Oh, that's encouraging because I'm concerned about, we do have 2 elementary schools. One is on the east side and one is on the west side of the freeway. And they have school buses that will have to go on Montgomery to get to Carlisle to pick up the students. And so I'm sure that there will be questions about that. So thank you for answering that. Now, one other question for me, and this is, they're very concerned and they want to know why it's going to be called the Texas turnaround and not the New Mexican turnarounds.
I didn't refer to them as Texas turnarounds. I basically said that most people know them as such, but we've referred to them as advanced U-turns, trying to keep state politics out of it. But but yeah, we referred to them as advanced turnarounds, but most people know them as that just because a lot of them occur in Texas. So.
And Pat, it's not uncommon for an innovative improvement like that to have a geography tied to it. There's lots of different improvements around the country and they call it a Michigan this or a Texas that, and so we're not trying to be offensive. It's just Texans used it and a lot of drivers recognize it because they've been in Texas driving. And so we like to reference that. So somebody might go, oh yeah, I know how that works. I've driven one there before.
Well, I haven't found anybody yet that has gone to Texas.
Pat, maybe we can start a neighborhood initiative to start calling them the New Mexico turnarounds.
Yes, there you go.
That'll be a project for 2022.
Thank you so much for everything you guys are doing.
Thank you,
Hey,
Pat.
I do want to add one thing to the traffic effects. So a lot of people travel through the corridor or across it, right? On any given day, there's a lot of people traveling through or through the corridor. And as a consequence, much of the work that will go on and much of the work that would affect the main travel lanes, we expect to occur at night.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah.
I also want to quickly add on, I appreciate your comment about the schools and the buses. As we get closer to construction, we will definitely work with the transportation experts that are moving students around to make sure they understand what we're doing and when. Something that we always try to do is ensure that students can move safely through the work zone, whether they're walking or on buses. So we'll be doing more outreach with the schools as construction approaches.
Well, that's great to hear. Thank you.
Pat, did you have any other questions from the neighborhood perspective?
Not really. I think that most of them you're going to be covering.
Okay, yeah, just feel free to jump in if there's something that I don't get to that you think of during the question session.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Actually, something that Pat mentioned, it made me, it kind of ties in with one of the questions I want to ask. Will construction take place 24/7, 365, or will there be gaps in the construction? And you kind of answered that, Mike. You said it will primarily take place at night to avoid the types of traffic impacts people are afraid of. But will there construction be going on a daily basis or a nightly basis, I should say?
I would expect you to see activity throughout the entire duration of the project. To what extent and how that affects actually travel lanes or how actually people are moving through the project area or not, I think that'll change day to day and night to night. But I would expect there to be activity that in some part of the project go on, throughout the duration of it. I don't expect to see somebody leave the site and come back, but again, we really don't know how they would approach it, and we like to leave a lot of that. I mean, we're setting with our procurement documents and our contract documents, we're setting a whole list of minimum expectations that we're expecting a team to come in and design and build that. So we're setting a pretty strict framework for them to work within. that being said, you know, the construction industry, that's their expertise, is how to actually build things.
Mhm.
And so we want to leave as much flexibility up to their expertise as we can. Because if we feel like if we challenge them in the right ways, they can probably come up with, you know, the best ways to construct that while keeping all the other things open and addressed and people moving through. So.
Mhm. Okay.
Vanessa, to add to what Mike said, you know, you asked the question 24/7, 365 days out of the year. I think 24/7 is real. You're going to see work happening, and they're going to find ways, like Mike's saying, to complete work ongoing throughout the day and at night to keep the project moving, but also keep traffic and vehicles moving.
Sure.
But we are going to put limitations in there for key holidays when you see peak traffic.
Sure.
So they're not going to be allowed to work when people are coming and going from the community or the city on those peak holiday times, the balloon fiesta and things like that. And so if you're traveling for Thanksgiving, lanes will be open on I-25, so you can get in and out of the town, or, you know, visitors can get in and out of town as well. And so it won't be 365 days a year, but they'll want to maximize every day they get the project done. We'll want them to as well.
Yeah.
The more time they work up front, the less duration they're going to have to.
Okay. I was remembering when the big I project was going on, and there were often times when the interstate would actually shut down overnight for a few hours to speed up the construction work. Do you expect something similar?
I do. There are certain activities that cannot occur around live traffic. And so just a handful of those sort of things, if you can imagine, if you're using cranes to set bridge girders or the big large beams to swing those in place, we don't want live traffic going on as they're doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that we would expect that a direction of the mainline freeway to close while they put girders into place, while they're using cranes to put girders in place. Or if they're placing concrete over top of live traffic, we don't like that to occur. So so that if they have a form that bursts and breaks, and you don't want you don't want concrete to fall on the live traffic. So anything that occurs, so we would close the lanes for activities like that. And then stuff like in this particular section of I-25, there's a lot of overhead signs, a lot of large overhead sign structures that span the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
Setting those, we would close live traffic as you're placing those over the top of the lanes as well. So anything that's kind of being swung over or placed over top, we would want to close the traffic to. So, but we would expect that would mostly all be at night.
Okay.
So.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And again, I understand that a lot of this stuff is down the road, and you probably don't have answers for things right now, but they are questions that are going to probably continue to be asked even, you know, during the construction. So I'm trying to get ahead of it as much as I can with the questions now. How will detours be handled? Particularly, there's a concern that detours will go through residential neighborhoods. If they do, what recourse do neighborhood residents have to mitigate potential traffic or speeding issues? And this may not be something you can specifically answer. It might be related to Albuquerque police and traffic enforcement, but I wanted to ask the question.
I really appreciate that question. I really don't expect any detours through residential areas.
Okay.
Right. And in fact, the most, if we have detours at all, we expect to make most of that make use of the existing frontage roads in order to detour traffic around construction areas.
Okay.
Now, that being said, this particular project has the presence of, well, Montgomery and Montano, right? That is a river crossing over the Rio Grande River, one of the few. And so people are going to make choices as to where they come in. They may choose to divert, say, like on 4th Street or 2nd Street, in order to cut over to a parallel road that and make their travel, or they might use something like San Mateo or Carlisle to, to adjust which road they approach the project area on. We do expect some diversion to those types of roads throughout it, but we will not be putting up any detours through residential areas.
Okay, great. That will make several people very happy. Speaking of detours and your public outreach tools that are available, will there be a mechanism for people to like if they sign up to get project updates from the website, will there be a mechanism for them to get notified as to what kind of detours are happening on any given day?
Anytime we change a route or require a detour, we'll provide mapping both on the website
Okay, great.
and out through email, so that those that have signed up will be aware of it as well.
Okay, that's great. That's good news. If there are things like utility shutdowns in surrounding areas as a result of the construction, how would residents handle that? Would that be something that they would report to the NMDOT or to the utility companies, or would they need to contact somebody within the city?
So I don't anticipate any planned outages there, but I mean, they would handle that the way they do today, right?
Okay.
If there's an outage on electric, you'd call P&M. If
Okay.
there's, you'd call the appropriate utility company for the outage.
Okay.
I mean, it may or may not be related to the project. That's
Sure.
not to say that the project might not have an outage for some reason or another, but the appropriate way to do that is with the appropriate utility company.
Okay, great. The next question that I'm sorry, what?
If we have any planned outages, we're not anticipating it this time, but if there was a water shutdown, we'd work with the water company to notify those that would be impacted, let them know the duration. Same
Okay.
with power. We typically don't have a lot of those on a project like this, but if we had a planned outage, we would do outreach as well.
Great. Okay, that sounds good. Your next question is, how will issues relating to homeless encampments be handled? One of the concerns I've heard about is that moving homeless encampments will lead to encampments either cropping up in residential neighborhoods or in businesses that are in proximity to the construction. How would neighborhood residents or businesses deal with that, report that, or be expected to deal with that? And I know there's a similar question in the chat as well.
That's it. I mean, I can answer part of that. The department is working to refine the way they work and deal with encampments along the highways. Certainly, there are encampments within the project area that will have to be relocated or displaced during the construction. It just can't occur there and have people be there and be safe, right? So there would have to be, and that process of how those relocations occur is like I said, it's being refined, and how those folks are notified and how the relocation occurs. That process is kind of being refined between the department and the city. We'll use that process, but there will have to be encampments that are there now that will not be able to be there during the construction. It's just right in the wrong place. Where they go and how they're affected, that is really hard to answer, right? And where they might relocate to, I don't know that anybody knows that answer for sure. But I think that the way people would handle it is really the way they would handle it today. If something occurs, they would, contact the Albuquerque Police Department and deal with it that way.
The other thing I wanted to ask is will the NMDOT and the project team be working with the Albuquerque Community Safety Department? I'm sure you know about it. It's the new city department that is specifically tasked with working with people experiencing homelessness and people in encampments.
Yeah, that's part of the process. They're part of the process that the department and the city are refining. So
yeah,
it's
okay.
I mean, that whole situation continues to evolve over time.
Yeah.
So they're working on better ways to approach it. So
yeah, that's true. Okay, thank you for that.
And then
I'm sorry, Bo?
The question in the chat, Mike, a little bit different than that. I just want to make sure. Marilyn asked, what is being done to discourage homeless from living under the I-25 overpasses at Comanche and Montgomery?
Mhm.
Montgomery goes over, so I think there's probably less concern for that one, but certainly at Comanche. Mike, are we doing anything design? I know we've talked about this a lot as a team, but is there anything happening that would discourage them from, living under there, staying under there after construction is done?
Yeah, so there's a balance. We're create, and this, we talk about this a lot with how bridges are designed and the adjacent features are designed. And so we're trying to, in those areas, have, for instance, slopes that occur that are difficult to, build an encampment on. We have to balance that with also making those particular pieces of infrastructure accessible to those that come in and inspect and maintain it, those with the department that come in and inspect it. So we kind of strike that balance between what's accessible for those folks that have to access it to maintain it and inspect those facilities, but also discourage and make those places difficult to camp on, right? So that gets talked a lot about, and that, again, that's an evolving thing. So
yeah, it's a challenging question, no matter what the circumstances are. I agree. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. In the chat, Marilyn Strube had typed in another question, which I think was answered in the overall project presentation, but Marilyn, if it wasn't, let us know in the chat. The question was, the I-25 northbound exit to Comanche is one of the worst in town to get off I-25 and then turn east on Comanche. How will this exit be improved? Did Marilyn, did they answer your question during the presentation, or do you still need more specifics? Feel free to type it. Okay.
I have more information there.
Oh, great.
So yeah, that exit is kind of a white knuckle move at different times of the day, particularly when there's a lot of traffic queued up from the signal at the busier parts of the day. You get off at full highway speed and you meet brake lights right away, right? And so there is some things being done there. We're moving that off ramp further south, so to increase the distance between where it exits the freeway and the signals and provide more room. There's additional storage for vehicles at the intersection, plus the efficiency of the intersection will move traffic through it such that those queues during the signal cycles will be shortened. So the traffic will not back up as far at the signals. So there, a combination of things, there will be more space between the off ramp and that signal for people to do so. There is also some access that complicates that. There's a drive that comes out just in advance of that. We're simplifying that so that people can't come out of there and dart across all lanes of travel, right? And there's just a lot of things going on there. We're trying to simplify and consolidate things so that there's not so many conflicting moves. Right. I hope that answers the question a little better, but we know that that's a problem and the project is responding to that. So.
Thank you for that. And then there's an attendee with their hand up. It's Jerry Griego. Jerry, I'm going to allow you to ask your question if you want to start speaking. Jerry?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks for being part of it. What is your question?
I just want to thank you about the Comanche exit because it is one of the worst. Mm-hmm. And I also just wanted to make a comment about those Texas U-turns. I was in Amarillo a while back, and they are absolutely wonderful. I think it's going to alleviate a lot of traffic accidents and so on. But yeah, I'm for calling them a New Mexico or whatever turnabout. But it's still
you can work with me and Pat on that. It's going to be our project for the next year.
That sounds good.
The naming preference of those seems to depend entirely on whether you were born in Texas or not.
Right. I also wanted to say, on Montgomery, it's always backed up at certain times of the day. But what really bothers me there is that bridge where we have homeless on the sidewalk that just pass out and crash there. Their legs are onto the street. Will there be a sidewalk that's wider or what?
Yeah, the sidewalk will be a lot wider.
Oh, good.
In both directions. And then actually through the interchange itself, there will be raised barriers between that sidewalk and the traffic.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Did any of our, go ahead. I'm sorry, Bo. I keep interrupting you. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. To add to what Mike said about the sidewalk, it will be a shared use path. We've worked with GATSI over the last 6 months or so to try to come up with a design that made sense, that was safe for bikes and pedestrians. And so they've provided some input on that. And so it will be wider, but it will be a shared use path, and bikes and pedestrians will use the same facility to navigate both interchanges. And like Mike said, there'll be a shared use path on both sides. Both directions will have one.
Right. That's good to know. And we did have one last question from an attendee in the audience. It's got like several parts to it. It was an inquiry about putting in a bus stop. Let me see if I can find it here. So is there a possibility of installing a bus stop along the north side of Comanche, just west of I-25 freeway, east of Alexander Boulevard on the south edge?
I think the question was more, there's a bus stop there. Could there be a bus shelter or a shelter put in at the bus stop? I think that was more the way I read it. If I misunderstood that. So, the project itself will just relocate that bus stop over, but whether there's a shelter or not really is not under the purview of the Department of Transportation. That's under the transit agency, which is ABQ Ride.
Yeah.
And that would be up to, that would be probably their purview of whether one is installed there or not.
Okay.
I can't speak to that directly.
Okay. There's a question in the chat from Kathy Intaman. Will the city provide a bike lane from the Rio Metro station on Montano to connect to the proposed new bike lane?
So you're talking about the Brit. So you're talking about all the way to the Rio Metro station. So the bike facilities that we're putting in would end at the intersection of Culture, right? So that's the extent of the project. We're not going any further west of there.
Okay.
But there is some non-motorized facility west of the project, but we're not working in that area. But where we are working is between basically the intersection of Culture across the interstate to the bridges that cross the North Diversion Channel. And throughout that length is where we're adding these combined non-motorized bicycle pedestrian lanes in either direction of travel.
Okay. Kathy, I think the question that you're asking is something that I can probably direct to Department of Municipal Development for you. So I'll do that after we're done with this session, and I'll see if I can get an answer for you. Okay. We have another panelist, Brian Egan. He actually is the gentleman who submitted the question about the bus stop. So I'm going to go ahead and allow him to ask his question. Brian, go ahead.
I wanted to thank you, Mike, for answering that earlier question. So yeah, it sounds like ABQ Ride Transit will be the one that decides if they'll put in a bus stop bench there by American Furniture. The question I had that's more on the road design is, are you willing to put in a turnout there, a bus turnout, so that way when the buses are stopped, they don't block the flow on westbound Comanche Road? And similarly on Montgomery Boulevard as well, if there was going to be any thought to the design of putting in bus bays, so that way the buses could pull out and not block the main line mixed-use travel lane.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. There is a ton of debate on that, and the project is not proposing to change that at all. Being just outside of this project, being in the transportation industry for my career, that bus drivers really do not like those pull-out lanes. And the reason being is because traffic will not let them back into through lanes if they pull out of the through lanes. Bus drivers actually prefer to stop in the lane. I know that inconveniences traffic for a while the buses stop there, but you know, that's kind of, for most of my career, that's been a debate whether to put those in, but most transit agencies and most drivers kind of shy away from it because the traffic will not let the buses back in if they pull off.
It can also be a safety issue as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
So
Brian?
that might not be what you wanted to hear, but that's,
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Mike. That's very insightful. As someone who's ridden the Comanche bus for many years, that makes sense now. So I get it why they won't be doing that.
yeah.
I appreciate that direct, clear answer. And then the other question also about the design of Montgomery Boulevard from I-25 east to the Mafka Channel. Is there any thought to putting in fencing in the middle of the median, like you see on University Boulevard south of Cole by CNM, to keep pedestrians from darting across to prevent jaywalking? Because there are a lot of pedestrians that jaywalk between the two gas stations there, and it would be a good safety measure to confine the pedestrians to use the crosswalk at the interstate intersection.
We hadn't proposed that. The one thing that we are doing is putting a raised median in there to prevent left turns out of those driveways crossing all of the traffic. But we hadn't proposed to put up a fence to prevent the people from walking across. There will be more of a direct connection, a non-motorist connection, because we're providing a connection from the sidewalks on both sides of Montgomery down to the North Diversion Channel Trail, the bike path that runs along the North Diversion Channel. So pedestrians could go connect to that and walk under the bridge and get back up between those two gas stations. But we hadn't thought to put in a fence across there. There is some left turn channelization that we're providing for that. I never know what to call that. It's the access road. It accesses a number of apartment buildings and it runs along the west side of those two gas stations.
Hello, Pan American.
Yeah, you're right. I get confused between that and the actual frontage road, but there is a left. So there is a lane that we're allowing left turns in, but we won't allow left turns out of that drive. But so that might complicate whether you put a fence in or not there. But we hadn't included that thus far.
Thanks, Brian. Did you have any other questions while we have you on the screen?
Oh, just a final question. Would you like public support for funding this project? Should we be asking the state legislature, since they're in session, to send capital outlay so we can have landscaping be included in the project? Do you need more money?
I think we'll take all the support we can get.
Yeah, because the state has a large surplus, so this is the year to ask for money. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Those are really good questions, or things I hadn't even thought about. So I appreciate you asking them. Really, really good questions. Thanks again. And then I see that Jerry Grego has another question, so I'm going to bring her back on. Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, yes. What about lighting? Like Comanche exit is very dark. Are we going to have better lighting there on the freeways?
So there will be new lighting installed along the highway and in the interchanges. I'm not exactly familiar with how that's lit today. I don't believe we have continuous lighting along every inch of the frontage roads, but in the areas of the interchanges and the off ramps, there will be. So I think it's being improved, but I'm not completely familiar with how dark that is right now. But lighting is being replaced through the project.
Great.
Thank you, Jerry. I actually have a question that I just thought about. Will sound walls be installed to block the noise from the apartment complexes that are around the Montgomery area?
That's a good question. Complicated answer. So we have done a noise analysis, and that area does meet the criteria for installing a noise wall. And so, but that does not mean that the department will install a noise wall. That basically when one meets the criteria, when a location meets the criteria for a noise wall in a project like this, then it kind of becomes whether a majority of the people affected by that want it or not. Sometimes installation of noise walls can be controversial because sometimes it blocks people's view, right? So we're asking those apartment complexes, and they are trying to gather input from their residents about what their preferences are right now.
Okay.
So whether one's installed or not, that process hasn't totally played out.
Okay. A question in the chat from Brian Egan. Hold on, I just had it and it disappeared. Can sidewalks be built along the frontage roads?
That's a good question too. So you may not like the answer to this, but we actually do not want to. And the reason is that those frontage roads are signed or posted at 45 miles an hour. I think everyone probably realizes that that's not reality. Operating speeds are 60 miles an hour, if not more. And that really is not a situation we want to formally put pedestrians right adjacent to, is 60 mile an hour traffic. That's highway speeds, right? And so we
have you seen the way some people drive in Albuquerque? They don't care.
yeah, and I'm been here since I moved here the end of last summer. I am only now getting to appreciate the Albuquerque drivers. I can't say that I understand them yet, but yeah, no, it's having sidewalks adjacent to those. We really don't feel like it's a safe situation. We'd rather have people use the other streets and the other street network to access, where they need to go instead of walking along the frontage road. So we really prefer to not have them doing it just because the speeds are so high.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. There's a question in the chat from Peggy Neff about where can one go to take the survey?
The survey.
Ms. Neff, can you clarify what survey? You can type it into the chat if you want. And then while she's doing that, Jerry Grego has another question. Jerry, go ahead.
Okay, on the exit there on Comanche, there's a brand new Maverick station, gas station, and across is UPS. I have been coming get off the Comanche exit, and I'm headed east. And the drivers there at the Maverick station are in a hurry to get out of there. They bump into traffic and like to make U-turns. Will anything be done there, do you think? Will that be part of?
You're talking about that. So that street that Maverick is on is Princeton.
I don't really know.
Yeah. So it is. So that's that intersection you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're not. I mean, that's right at the edge of our project. We're not really talking about doing anything other than replacing the right turn lane that was installed when that Maverick went in. Now, the thing that I will say is that the city of Albuquerque has a project to install a new signal to the east of here at Vassar, at the intersection of Vassar and Comanche.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's probably a change, but yeah, we won't be changing. We'll be performing some widening between the frontage road and Princeton, but we won't be changing the intersection of Princeton.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it.
Hmm?
In reference to the question about the survey, I'm asking Macy and the project team if they can find out how the outreach is being done with the NMDOT to the apartment tenants. And when I get that information, I'll be happy to share it with you, Ms. Neff, and all of the participants in the chat.
So the thing I would say that if you're a resident there in that apartment complex and you want to comment on that, get onto our website and enter a comment in that link that and just say that I live in that complex and this is my preference.
I also would encourage them to reach out to the apartment management. And
Yeah.
know as well.
She's trying to get some input. So, and how she's going about that, we're not quite sure, but she's trying to get some feedback.
Yeah, send it to us and reach out to the apartment complex management, and we'll make sure that we share it as well.
Great, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Were there any other questions from our attendees? I have asked all the questions I had received through email. Did I miss anything? Joseph, did you want to add anything from the department project management side?
I touched on it, but we are working with the city. So a lot of these questions that we're talking about, bus shelters and things, mitigating movements there at the Maverick and things like that is also a concern with the city. And we've been with them to do as much as we can in our project. And I know that they are also considering things for their upcoming project. So just wanted to point that out, that we are working together to address some of those issues.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. So I know, like you had said before, Mike and Bo and all of the project team, that a lot of this stuff is really far out, and not really far out, but it is in so much in the future that a lot of it can't really be addressed right now. Would there be any interest from the project team in having another one of these online webinars, either right before the construction or maybe during the construction, to just give people more of an update? Said my office would be happy to host if there's interest on your end. And I know our attendees would like that.
Yeah, I like the idea of doing it during construction. We could set up a quarterly or month, or we don't want to take over your platform, but yeah, before construction and then sometime during.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a topic of interest for everybody. These lunch and learns, they're not just for neighborhood association folks, they're for the entire public. And I think it's safe to say that every resident at one point or another is going to drive through that intersection. So it's a topic of interest for everybody. And like I said, I'm happy to host it. So I'll circle back to you all in a few months, and we can go from there. But I really appreciate it. I thought there's another hand that was raised, but I guess it's not. So did the project team have anything else that they wanted to add?
I just want to say thanks. Great format, great interaction, good questions today. Thanks for hosting us and letting us talk to your neighborhoods. This has been a good event.
Great, my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, I echo the same thing. It's been a good conversation. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Attendees, all the information is typed into the chat. I will include it when I send the video out next week in the weekly e-news. If you have any questions about how to contact the project team that you didn't get during this meeting, feel free to send me an email. I think everybody has my information, but I will type it into the chat one last time, and you feel free to contact me with any questions that you might have. And I want to extend a thank you to the project team. Thank you, NMDOT, Mike, Bo, Macy, Joseph, and Pat in particular. Thank you for taking the time. We really appreciate you sharing the neighborhood perspective. It's very valuable.
Well, thank you. And this is Pat from the New Mexico turnaround.
We're gonna do it, Pat. We're gonna do it. You all have a great afternoon. I'm gonna go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you, attendees.
Thanks for your time.
Bye-bye.